All right, hello, and welcome to episode 1 of Baki Talki, the podcast where we talk about Baki. Did I tell you the name of the podcast before?
No, you didn't. I was trying to figure out what you were going to call it.
All right, well, go back to the shadows for another second. I haven't introduced you yet. So this show is the show where I've watched Baki, and I'm going to make my friends, I guess, watch it piece by piece and just sort of get a different perspective on it. So first off, kicking off episode number 1, we have my friend Jack.
Hello. It's a thrill to be on Baki Talki, and I'm really honored that you would qualify me as a friends, sort of. I think that was the wording that you used.
Yes, I would consider you a
friend.
friend.
I guess.
Yeah, so before we jump into the show, just to let the audience get a bit more familiar with you. So, how do we know each other, Jack?
Well, Steve, you and I went to high school together. I met you when I was in grade 9, and you were in grade 10. And we've been
I'm in
fast
grade 12
friends.
now. So.
And you're in grade 12, and I am an Oxford graduate.
Wow.
You'll catch up one of these days.
I'm taking my time.
Yeah. You're too busy watching Baki all the time. I keep on telling you, no more Baki. And we did drama together, and then we've just been friends since then.
Cool. That's.
Yeah.
I think that's enough. Two other quick questions. What are you watching right now other than Baki? Just so we can get a sense of your taste.
Atlanta, some episodes of Slow Horses, and the new episode of the new season of Barry, and the new series of Taskmaster. But I also do watch a lot of anime, so I have that kind of going for me. You know, like I just finished 86 and Ranking of Kings, which is great. So
I still have to watch that one. I've only heard.
Oh,
good
it's so
things.
good.
I actually just started a new one, but this show isn't about me. Final question.
I don't want to hear it.
Final question. What did you know about Baki before watching this episode? Anything?
I knew a little bit. I think I watched some video essay on Baki, like specifically talking about. I think the artist in particular, because I know that there have been a bunch of iterations of Baki in the past, like a lot of different anime adaptations, and the manga's been going on for I think a while. I don't know if it's still going.
It's still going. I was going to bring this up later, but it's I think the 6th longest running manga of all time, and it has more volumes than One Piece.
No, really?
Yes, it's
wow.
And if you look at how much has happened in One Piece versus how much has happened in Baki, the pace is so much slower.
Well, that is a thing. I've read all of One Piece. Is my one very normal claim to fame.
Yeah, claim to fame. Man, look at this guy. All right. Enough dilly-dallying. Let's get into it. So, you watched episode 1 of Baki.
I did.
I'm going to ask you to tell me what happened in the episode. And then you can tell me what you thought of it. Okay. So, Baki... so, I almost called you Baki. So Jack,
you can call me Baki. You can. I feel like for every guest you have on, you just call them Baki.
That would make things more more. Yeah, I think that would make it easier for the listener if I just call every
very
guest
cohesive
Baki.
For them. Yeah,
Baki talking Baki. So no, tell us what happened to our guests who may have watched the episode or who may not have.
So in episode 1 of Baki, you are thrown into the midst of a classroom and everybody's freaking out. Everybody's having this very weird reaction.
The ones who first noticed and understood what was happening were his classmates.
Why am I shaking?
Sir, may I please go down to the nurse's office?
Please,
I think I need to go too.
I just don't think I can wait any longer. All those who can't stop shaking, raise your hands. All of you?
Except for one kid who's asleep, who looks like a 26-year-old or maybe 30-year-old man versus the rest of the student body. And that is Baki.
He's definitely more muscular than the rest of the wimps in his class.
Isn't he like 14 or something like that? Like
I think he's like 16, something like
16. The guy has, oh my goodness gracious. So he's beat up, like he has bruises all over his face and stuff, and then you see that he has a cast later. There's a random, also to contextualize just how tough Baki is, the next scene is him being accosted by 3 schoolyard bullies.
These delinquents possess a strong self-preservation instinct, much like being able to survive in the wild.
That have the worst drawn-on chains ever. But they're also like kind of like weirdly jacked. Like their pectoral muscles are like full-on like rectangles.
You know, Baki, it's not like we chose to live this way to be cool. Well, kinda.
What I couldn't understand is why none of them buttoned up their shirts. Like, just going to school with unbuttoned, just showing off your pecs in the hallway. Yeah,
you always gotta wonder about those rebel kids with the uniforms. They just do whatever they want.
It's true.
But they're like, oh, easy pickings, and then one of them is like,
Get it? Huh? Let's just forget this guy, okay?
And then they all freak out. And the narrator, who has this like rich, buttery voice, pops in.
Maybe these delinquents didn't have what it takes.
We are watching the dub of it, so
yes, the English version. The narrator is perfect, and one of my favorite.
The narrator is
characters.
very good.
Baki was unlike anything they'd ever seen before.
Alludes to the fact that these kids know how dangerous, just instinctively, how dangerous Baki is. At which point the viewer can really say, oh, that guy's dangerous. Then he gets called to the principal's office where this businessman / underground leader of a fighting ring.
Mitsunari Tokugawa, the 11th generation head of the Tokugawa business empire, rules over the underground fight arena.
Is really excited to see Baki. They obviously know each other.
I did want to touch on that. What are your thoughts on an 11th generation businessman also being the ruler of an underground fighting ring? Do you think that is capitalism working as intended?
Oh, most certainly. Oh, definitely. This is like Kaiba Corp going on right now, honestly. If it had a little more bravery. If this guy had more bravery, he would bring this ring to the forefront, because Kaiba Corp, they just banish people's souls all the time.
Am I supposed to be scared to attack?
Well, only if destroying an innocent soul concerns you.
Nah. As the president of a major corporation, I have to do that every day.
In a card game, this one they're trying to be hush hush about it.
See, I see it the other way. I see Kaiba as sort of like a dweeb who plays with card games. Meanwhile, this guy is like having just grown men fight to, not the death, but pretty close to it in this underground
very
fortress.
Well looks like it. Yeah. Oh, I mean, like the intro. I didn't talk about the intro. The intro is like heavy, this metal thing going on, like very thunder pumping action excitement.
I wanna know the deep.
Although I was actually excited to watch it after watching the song, like the intro,
the opening theme, yeah.
All the characters looked kind of fun and odd. They were all in different fun, weird poses. It wasn't the most movement-oriented opening, but it was kind of cool. Anyways, yeah, our capitalist hero,
Mitsunari Tokugawa,
brings out a stick of dynamite. He brings out nitroglycerin into school.
You know what this is, Baki?
I don't know. Is that a mousetrap?
It's nitroglycerin.
Yeah, he just puts it on a table in the principal's office where he's called Baki too.
He took out this black brick, and put it on the table. In the back of my mind, I'm like, this guy has dynamite. He brought dynamite to school.
And the best part is there's no reason he needs that other than as like a visual storytelling aid. And then Baki doesn't even react.
Kind of overkill.
No, he doesn't even care. He's like, oh well, this again, or like, he does not give a shit. Baki doesn't care about anything the entire time. He's not particularly worried. We'll get into some of the more worrisome stuff later, but.
So what are your thoughts on the creation of dynamite and how that has to play into our story?
That's like I think it was like a 2.5 to 3 minute segue, just to use like a simile to what's going on right now, like a metaphor.
Yep. It's one of my favorite things this show does all the time.
It does it often?
Oh, the narrator will just start talking about random shit.
His supply of glycogen, a human's last resort for cellular energy, had completely run out.
In one episode, he just talks about a guy who got killed by the mob for 4 minutes. Like, but not to get ahead of ourselves. By the way, I looked it up. It's, I don't know if you thought it was like a real thing, but like it's not really.
I honestly, he said it with such conviction that I was wondering if it was an actual occurrence.
Yeah, it's more of a synchronicity. Myth.
Yeah.
For our viewers, actually, why don't you explain what synchronicity is, Jack?
It's basically that in nitroglycerin terms, it used to be it couldn't crystallize, and then all of a sudden, all at once around the world, all nitroglycerin crystallized at the exact same time in a synchronicity, some sort of like event greater than, the people that are beholding it.
It said from that day on, batches of nitroglycerin all over the world began crystallizing one after another. That's called synchronicity.
It is also a Police album, and I think that is where the inspiration comes from.
Yeah, well, when they recorded that album, it actually showed up in everybody's record player across the country. People started singing their songs all at once.
What's her name? Bono's band.
U2.
U2 tried to do that recently, and it wasn't. It was a false synchronicity, obviously.
The amount of times I've listened to that album because it was the only album on my phone. I love just singing around like volcano. Anyway.
Wow, you actually know the album. That's earnestly impressive.
Volcano. Anyway. Yeah, so we know what lightning and nitroglycerin and synchronicity can be. What happened next?
So he was bringing up synchronicity as a means to tell Baki something bad's going down, and then we cut to the USA in a prison where a guy's about to be hung. Everybody's really nervous. He's like kind of scary dude.
Well, Mr. Dorian, do you have any last words to say?
I want to taste defeat.
But doesn't put up a fight. He goes up there and is hanged. The narrator kicks in to say, like, we got to leave him up there for 10 minutes.
State Law Article 29, Clause 3. After a hanging, the prisoner is to be left on the gallows for 10 minutes.
And then a coroner comes through and makes sure that they're dead. And surprise, he's alive. He's got the biggest tongue you've ever seen sticking out of his mouth.
Yeah, I was wondering if when you die your tongue falls out or something, because I didn't. Yeah.
It's huge. Maybe he was just selling it. Like maybe he was just really, he was practicing what it would look like to die, and was like, this will really.
He Googled what do dead tongues look like, and
yeah, he very quickly gets out of that. It seemed like it wasn't much of a problem to begin with. Like he could have just busted out of the locks
instantly.
Yeah. So I'm not entirely. He seems just like very a penchant for the dramatic. But he quickly karate chops 2 guards' heads off, and then murders everybody else and says, "I'll see you in Japan, in Tokyo. I want to know defeat."
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you in Tokyo.
Yes. So that is the synchronicity, is that multiple people across the world have decided to go to Tokyo to taste defeat. What are your thoughts on that, Jack?
Well, the whole sequence was bizarre. I was like, okay, they'll show us 1, and then they showed us a second. I'm like, are they going to show us 3? And I thought it was just 3, but it was 5. Well, the whole episode you barely even know who the heck Baki is. It's all of these other dudes. I think it's under the assumption that you probably know, you're probably watching Baki because you've watched the other Baki adaptations.
Which is an absurd assumption. Do you know when the last Baki that this is following it came out?
1995?
2001.
2000. Oh my gosh.
It was 17 years in between the two animes coming out. And as the show goes on, this is like following directly where the other one left off, and they'll just throw in a line here and there and be like, yes, Baki did this 18 years ago.
It's following directly where I wasn't like, I had a feeling that it was, but I didn't oh my goodness, that's ridiculous.
You know what I realized for the first time, because I usually skip it, the opening theme song where it's just showing clips of them fighting, I think that was their attempt to recap the previous anime. All of those scenes come from the tournament that was the end of the last anime. Right. Yeah.
Intriguing. I guess that makes sense. Okay. But yeah, so all of these killers are, and that includes, they just kind of progressively get a little better each time. There was the USA guy, then there is who's up next? Is it Russia? No, Russia was
next up is Doyle, the guy who got electrocuted.
Oh. From Scotland, and the guy who's like rubbing it in his face has eyes that are going in either direction. Like,
yeah,
that
guy looked ridiculous.
And he sounded like Craig Ferguson on a bender.
Yeah, Craig Ferguson, big fan of Baki. He asked to be in this episode for the English dub.
So he got electrocuted, but if he had been electrocuted for 10 more seconds, he would have had what he wanted most in life, which is death.
If you'd only waited 10 more seconds before switching off the juice, my greatest wish would have come true.
Don't know why he didn't just ask for more, but
exactly. You know? The guy who was operating the chair was right there. He could have
yeah. Hit me with another.
Yeah. No, I was gonna ask you about that, but I guess I'll just follow up with, what did you think of his turtleneck once he left the left the prison?
Honestly, super stylish. Don't know where the heck he got it from, but I like the immediate turn to fashion.
Yeah, I think canonically he murdered Steve Jobs on the way to the airport.
That makes sense. I think I remember reading something about that.
All right, and who was it after Doyle? The Russian Sikorsky?
Yeah, Sikorsky. Yeah, because there was this massive hole in the Russian winter. So it was just this hole in the earth, and they were like, "How did he get out?" He climbed.
You're telling me he grabbed onto a crack and climbed out? This wall's 100 meters straight up!
Sikorsky's physical abilities are beyond extraordinary.
What? And then they add an extra bit of detail to say that he would have won them so many gold medals if he hadn't resorted to a life of crime.
If he hadn't gotten mixed up with the criminal elements, who knows just how many gold medals he would have brought home to their motherland.
Yep.
Which is a great detail for a villain.
Well, that'd be like if Usain Bolt became a thief and nobody could catch him because he just ran away so fast.
You gotta wonder if he had resorted to that lifestyle, just how successful of a thief he would be.
Why? I think the thing that Baki presents is that Usain Bolt isn't really the fastest man alive, and that all of the real fast guys would just turn to crime, and that the Olympic athletes are nothing compared to our criminals in society. That was you got to think about
obviously it's just way more fun to challenge yourself and go to Tokyo to beat some people up or get into a street race or something in a crime syndicate. The competition's there. Olympics are just chumps.
Yeah. That's what the Fast and Furious crew did in their second movie. They went to Tokyo to taste defeat.
Third movie.
Oh, no.
And it wasn't even... And what's his name? Paul
Walker?
Paul Walker. I'm going to say Paul Dano.
Yeah.
The Joker. The Riddler does tricks. Paul Walker wasn't even in the movie. It was just a random dude.
Oh, yeah. See, I only watched like one scene from that movie.
Well, this is a great segue to welcome you onto my podcast about the Fast and the Furious series.
Oh, man. In the middle of my podcast?
Yeah, a really ambitious podcast within a podcast.
Wow, you're going to get a lot of viewers. I'm going to funnel in at least 3. So hopefully
I'll get them people some people skipping through. So probably 1.5 listens.
Yeah. All right. So I think there's two prisoners left.
I think the fourth was my favorite. He was also in. It's hard to say. Basically, some sort of congressman was there to interview him for one reason or another. A guard's warning him about.
See, I assumed that was his lawyer, but I guess it could be a congressman. Editor Steve here. I think I was a bit too generous in this argument. They never explicitly say what his job is, although they do refer to his predecessor as the previous counselor or counsel. Maybe that was the mix-up there, but it's pretty clear he's legal counsel, because if he was a congressman, why is he going into a submarine to talk to a serial killer? I don't know. Maybe Jack has an interesting view of your local congressman. Anyway.
I thought he said congressman. If it was his lawyer, then he has a really bad way of showing it. But gotcha. the congressman lawyer has a black belt in karate.
Yeah.
Which is how anybody who took karate says it after a certain point.
See, I don't have my black belt, unfortunately. I just have a brown belt that I wear around sometimes. I found actually that you don't even need a belt if you just grow until your pants just fit naturally. I think that all the martial arts people are wasting their time. So what happened to this guy, the congressman who went to go see a criminal?
He walks up and hit him with the classic, but he's not there. And then from the ceiling grate, he grabs him and crushes his head against the ceiling. The guard yells, curse you.
Spec.
Tom, what's his name?
Spec.
Oh, Spec, right. He's able to also deftly grab a gold tooth out of this man's now smushed mouth. At which point, we kind of got a idea of it earlier, but he seems to be able to pick any sort of lock or fashion a metallic substance into whatever he needs to open any door.
I think that's the unifying theme for these criminals. They're all very good with their fingers.
So he breaks out of what you figure out is a submarine, and then everybody's like, "Oh, he's gonna die. It takes 5 minutes to swim to the surface."
But it's impossible to swim to the surface.
It'd take 5 minutes.
Let him try. He'll be dead in 30 seconds.
He's laughing and says, "For the last year, I've been doing workouts holding my breath for a minute at a time." And then it's the reveal of his face, and I think he has, his eyebrows have muscles. He's the most bizarre looking one yet.
He is the weirdest guy. He has the weirdest backstory, which we won't learn for another few episodes. And yeah, he can hold his breath for 5 minutes. My favorite thing is the guy who yells, "He won't make it to the surface. We're 5 minutes underwater," as if all submarine attendants know this.
It's so strange. You wonder if it's 5 minutes in terms of submarine diving, or 5 minutes in terms of, what if it's a 5 minute in terms of a person's capability of going down.
I think that's what it is.
Still 5 minutes of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can cut that observation. It wasn't very fruitful.
Don't worry, this is gonna be like a 2-minute video by the time I'm done with it.
I think he's my favorite. He's just bizarre, and it feels like 5 minutes is, obviously that's like a human being really can't do that unless you're, I don't know, David Blaine or something. But it seems like a low ball for these, hyper. I was gonna say sexualized, hyper.
It's also true.
Hyper powered, yeah, true. These hyper powered individuals.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I love about Baki.
Like just 5 minutes.
Well, that's the thing. It's like the author wants it to be believable, but it's just not. And it like nobody's ever gonna lift up a car, but they'll get very close to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so you could say he really wants it to be believable, but the next guy directly contradicts that because he is inside this reinforced glass wall that bullets can't even shoot through.
He's in the Hannibal Lecter cage in his underwear.
Are we sure that glass cage is safe?
It'll deflect even the bazookas we got from the defense agency.
In his underwear, a little loincloth, very calmly. He's in Japan itself, and he's calmly writing something down. And then he asks them what the guards, what the most deadly poison is. They don't really answer. And then he starts talking to them about the glass and the fact for him, it's just a regular sheet of glass, because he's able to put his hand on the glass, make a vacuum, and then use that pressurized surface to break the glass, the reinforced glass that a bullet can't even go through.
That's just physics, Jack. Vacuums, they're quite strong. And...
I really just love how grounded in reality this thing is, like we were saying.
Well, I love a minute later when he blows a guy's brains out by putting his hands on his ears and then going whoosh.
You never answered. What's the most poisonous gas? The answer is this. My apologies. In my desire to taste defeat, I am heading for the capital.
What's the strongest poison? This. Like you give them like a raspberry, but like the worst raspberry you'd ever want.
Yeah, this episode... And I apologize because I forgot how much of a bloodbath it is. As the show goes, I think they really wanted to establish that these guys were criminals and deadly, and so they just completely murder so many people, and in some extremely graphic ways, like the guy who gets his brain blown out of his ear. So sorry about that.
It was great, but the funny thing about the blowing his brain out of his ear, it didn't even look like his brain. It looked like his large intestine that came out.
Yeah, he blew down, and then his whole body came up through the other ear.
It's just the way the airways work when you're, blowing air through your ear.
Yes. This guy's a master of the human form, so yeah.
Right.
So I think that was more or less the end of the episode.
Yeah, the old man, he's kind of eccentric. He's at the same time as warning him, he's kind of excited, and he's got the weirdest energy.
Baki, you know what that means, don't you?
It seems like he is really jazzed for Baki to fight these people, but also is aware of the grave situation that it entails. Yeah, I was trying to remember what exactly he said. But
yeah,
he was excited. He was excited for this kid to fight.
Well, you know what?
Serial killers.
I think he's supposed to be like the audience, We're excited, but we're also scared for Baki, even though he is the world's strongest 16-year-old boy.
Yes, and literally zero about him from this nothing about him from this first episode, aside from the fact that he sleeps in class, has some bruises, and can scare schoolyard bullies. You don't even know that he's strong necessarily. Like, you don't know what he's done aside from the intro to the episode.
Jack, that was basically perfect, because my next segment was, I'm going to, just to make things a bit easier for people as we go along, I wanted somebody to define a character each episode, and we can sort of keep a collection of that so I can help introduce new guests to the show on the cast of characters. So could you define Baki to me? Baki the character.
Baki the character.
Baki was unlike anything they'd ever seen before. They didn't know what to make of him.
He sleeps in class. He has bruises on his face, often, I would imagine. Boyishly floppy brown hair. And is not fazed by anything. As cool of a cucumber in any situation. Dynamite, he's fine with. Serial killers, he's fine with. Schoolyard bullies. I guess that's not really the best one to finish on, but
that'll do.
Yeah, not worried about anything. I guess because he's just that strong.
Yes. Well, just wait until you see him fight this season. I think he does it like twice. For a show named Baki, he doesn't get up to too much.
He only fights twice?
I'd be surprised if that's how many times he fights. The next episode is we've only introduced half the fighters this season. The next episode is going to introduce the good guys.
Oh, the good guys. Okay, so he has a rogues gallery, like a gallery of people that are on his side that you're supposed to be rooting for as well, for fighters.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah, and
I thought it was Baki against the world.
No, because that would make too much sense. Baki is, oh man, I can't spoil what happens to Baki. It's very anticlimactic what he does this season, but that's probably already enough of us. I might even cut that. Yeah. Okay, so that was the episode, and thank you for defining Baki for me. So, what were your overall thoughts? Were you intrigued? Did you think this seems like a good show? Honest opinions.
I was intrigued because it gave you so little, like literally nothing. The intro generally made me excited. I watched it a second time and I got a little less excited, but I was kind of jazzed for the show. And then everything else told me so little, nothing about the main character. And I was like, I just want to see what happens in the next episode. And now knowing that the next episode is just introducing more people as opposed to talking about Baki, I know for a fact that I'd fall down a rabbit hole watching this entire show out of spite.
All right, well, make sure you don't if you ever want to come back on the show.
That's exactly what I was planning. So I would say this is probably a bad show. I would say it's probably not a good show. From the terrific nitroglycerin metaphor, random man bringing a stick of dynamite to a school, to the 5 character introductions, none of which were the main character. Or they kind of did a small introduction on the old dude, but aside from that, it's pretty general.
Yep.
Stacked voice actors, though. Stacked voice acting cast. One of them was definitely Sasuke.
Editor's note, no.
I think.
Which one?
It was the guy in Glasgow. It was the guy who was in the
Doyle?
chair. Doyle, yeah. I think so.
Oh, joy. Well, I've never watched Naruto. I've never watched that show, so my view of Sasuke is definitely plummeting now. Doyle's the worst.
Why? He's got this wankiest turtleneck.
Oh, you should see what he wears next. But we'll leave on that cliffhanger. Jax, thank you so much for coming on the show and for kicking things off on the right foot.
Thanks for having me. This is it's a blast watching these fighters not fight.
Yeah, don't get used to that. All right. Well, this has been Talking Baki, and we are now done talking Baki. I'm going to come up with a better sign off than that. Good night.